Okay, this next question is about the HST and small business. The imposition of the HST, an additional 8% on goods and services, was the result of a secret accord between the federal conservatives and the provincial liberals, in the opinion of the person who's writing this question. This 8% has negatively impacted small businesses by cutting income by 30% at a time when we were trying to recover from a recession. The offset attempted by a small check issued to small business is too little, too late. Can you explain what your position is on the HST and why you think it was good for small business?
I don't think that the whole idea of the HST was to harmonize. The problem was that the Premier decided not to make any other alterations to this program other than send the checks that were mentioned. The HST has meant that people have less discretionary spending. Part of our platform removes the provincial portion of HST off the home heat and hydro as two things that are necessities for people. And the problem is that the $4.3 billion that McGuinty received in order to bring about a process, an HST process in Ontario, is gone, and we cannot change any part of that agreement before 2015, regardless of the difficulties that it's created by its implementation.
We have no plans to eliminate the HST at this point. We think it makes more sense to give tax breaks to lower income, middle income people and tax breaks to small business and keep the HST in place. Those people have the money, they can spend it, and that will stimulate the economy.
The HST was a deal between the Conservative Party in power and the Liberal Party in power provincially. McGuinty was definitely under pressure from the PC's sister party federally to come to a deal with that. We will eliminate it from hydro, home heating, and off of gasoline at the pumps eventually. But I do think that a referendum, personally, I think it should be held, and if I were MPP, I would definitely push that forward. I think that everyday Ontarians can make that decision. I think you're smart enough people. You can decide whether it's working, whether it's not working. And although some people think that it cannot be revoked until 2015 or changed, I would say look at BC.
HST is part of a tax reform package. And because this is such a complicated issue, even chartered accountants have difficulty with it, I'd like to emphasize it was meant and in fact is being implemented as a tax reform package. HST is just one component of it, and the intent of this legislation is to make it easier for businesses to do their tax accounting. It also removed from the Ontario public service sector a large number of jobs. They were all transferred over to the Canada Revenue, so they didn't lose their job, but it came off the provincial books. At the end of the day, the Ontario Chambers of Commerce support the HST. They are very supportive of this because most small businesses, large businesses, or corporations like the easy way of one reporting to the taxman. Thank you.
The next question is about the peaker plant. Under your government, what will be the state of the peaker plant located in the Holland Marsh, and why?
The peaker plant will be disassembled and taken down. It was built illegally. The Liberals violated their own laws to build it. It's an inappropriate place to build a facility like that. And there's some question as to whether the plants are even necessary, because today the plant that was planned for Mississauga has has been stopped because they say they don't need the energy. So let's really take a look and see what this is. If you break the law, which they did, then it should come out of there. It's an inappropriate spot. There's 3 or 4 layers of environmental protection that were violated to put it into that spot. Thanks.
I'm going to have to agree with Mead on this one. The problem is not just the regulation, but the enforcement. It's the same, if I've used this analogy before. If I'm going 130 in an 80 zone, what does it matter if nobody stops me? The law may be there, but if it's not enforced, what does it matter? So the NDP will strengthen enforcement. It will make good on these laws. Mississauga, we can shut down Mississauga, we can shut down the peaker plant here. The issue is we're not seen as a riding that stands up for these things. Mississauga, they obviously stood up more than we did. Their MPP was backing them. They did more than write a few letters to a few mayors, and they got it shut down. And we can do it too.
As you probably heard today, or yesterday, sorry, the Mississauga plant, peaker plant, it is not being canceled. It has been delayed and is going to be moved to another location that is far more acceptable for a whole bunch of reasons. So it still would be proceeding because they still need the energy source from this. In terms of the peaker plant here in King, at the Holland Marsh all candidates debate, I did say that had I been the MPP, I would have vehemently fought against this peaker plant location. However, I don't know at this point in time if our government will be looking at doing things a little differently for upcoming peaker plants, but we do need the energy in terms of the planned growth that will be coming forward for York Region and further areas north of here. We believe that the MOE reports adequately addressed the health concerns. Thank you.
Well, it's very, very interesting to have the latest desperate attempt by McGuinty with regard to the peaker plant in Mississauga, because here we are 11 days away from an election, and suddenly he's put his seat saver plan into effect again. It was first Oakville and now Mississauga. It's very interesting because as the person who did what I could, when people talk about vehemently, I'm not quite sure what that means. You have only a certain suite of things that you can do as a member operating within the legal environment of the legislature. But I made it very clear to people from 2005 on that this was something that was a potential to happen. So I find it very interesting that all the reasons why it was necessary, the engineering studies that would accompany it, the planning, and all of the money that would go into that is suddenly not necessary in Oakville and Mississauga, but it was necessary here. I can assure you that a Tim Hudak government is more interested in local decision-making than in the kind of evidence we witnessed today, where we have a seat saver program in Mississauga and Oakville.
We have a sample of, for this next question, if anyone needs to see it. It was provided by the person who's asking this question. And the question is, I have seen many signs that say solar energy is worth protecting around the riding. They don't say who pays for the signs or how to contact them. Do you agree with third-party soft money campaigning? And do you have any idea where their signs came from and who pays for them?
I must say, in the past 2 months traveling this riding, I have not seen that sign. I have no idea. I have no idea who's paid for it. No idea whatsoever. And I gather that someone here in this room has concern about third-party payment with no source. I think that actually is kind of a chicken way of putting your message forward. You should have a source that if you want to contact them and have a debate about it, that would be nice to have. So I have no idea about that one at all.
Yeah, I'd have to, I have to agree. I think, first of all, the question of third-party advertising is one that needs to be visited in terms of our election laws. It's not allowed at the federal level, but it is a loophole that exists in Ontario. And so you see people who don't have to follow the same rules with regard to advertising, with regard to financing their advertising and so forth. So it's certainly very misleading to be able to have what we have here with third-party advertising. But I agree with Gloria about the fact that there's no name on it, there's no identification. If people really want to have a conversation, then you should at least be able to have the courage of saying who you are. But in general, I would just say that third-party advertising doesn't fall under the same rules as the political parties, and that seems to be fundamentally unfair.
I have to admit, maybe I'm preoccupied, but I don't recall seeing even one of these, but I have seen dozens of websites with similar sort of background. You don't know who they are and whatever, but they obviously are backing an agenda. I think third-party advertising is wrong. The parties should take care of themselves. The candidates should take care of themselves. And I would go further to say and point out that in our platform, if it were up to us, we would eliminate any sort of corporate or union contributions to any parties, candidates, or constituency associations. People need to, elections should be about people, should be about voters. It shouldn't be about special interests pushing things on them. And I can tell you, I get 150 to 200 emails a day, and some of them are pretty narrow issues, and they're all form letters. Thank you.
I have seen these, and I seem to be the only candidate who has seen them. They're over mostly on Yonge Street, is where I saw them, but over not in our riding in Newmarket. I don't see how this is third-party advertising personally. I guess by a stretch of imagination, you could say solar energy links to certain parties, but to me, this is just an interest group saying that you should support solar energy. As far as who is doing it, there should definitely be some qualifications for that. Actual third-party advertising, like, for example, the Toronto Catholic School Board does some advertisings. That needs to be reviewed, and that needs to have some rules, the same rules as our rules for advertising placed on it.